Okay, so in this section, we proceed to coding the options section. So let me bring up the option section. So this is the section we want to code now. If option 1 is selected, the add book function is outlined above as an outline above to add a book. If option 1 is selected, the add book function is outlined above to add a new book. Should be to add a book here, not unbook. To add a book to the list. Okay, so we do this first one first, and we go step by step. So go back to our PyCharm. So here we come here. So we come here and we say we declare a variable option. We say is equal to option is equal to, we want the user to choose a number. We say choose menu option. Then we say 1, 2. We say, okay, so here I'm gonna use variable. We know that the length of the menu is 7. So because we have the menu is gonna be let me run it again so you can see. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 options to choose from. All right, so we could say choose from 1 to 7. We could say choose from 1 to 7, but instead of saying 1 to 7 here, I'll prefer to use a variable, the length of the list. In that case, if other options are added to the menu, let's say 3 extra menu items are added to the menu, then the menu becomes 10 items now instead of 7. We want that the program should take account of the new additions. Okay, so instead of saying from now, it would say from 1 to 7, but we want that if 3 more are added, it should say from 1 to 10 instead of 1 to 7. But if we had code 7 here, and then the 3 more items are added, the menu would never take note of that. It will always say choose from 1 to 7, even though there are 10 items or 12 items. So instead of doing that, let's use a string formatting here. We put an F there before the quotation mark, and then we can then use variables inside the string. All right, so to use variable inside a string, we need to use curly braces first, and inside that curly braces now we put what we want to do. So I would say in here, I say 1 1 is out there, 1 is outside here. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now in the curly braces, now I use I want the program to take into consideration the current length of the list, so that if whenever the list changes, the program will always get the latest length of the list. So I would say length self dot books list. Okay, so then we don't need these ones now. Okay, so that's it there. No, I think this one goes out there. Then the color, then out the bracket house. Oh, there's a length. Oh, okay, length list. There's a bracket there first. Okay, length list, that is closing length bracket. Okay, then we have a closing bracket out there like that. Okay, so we say choose menu options from 1 to, in this case, 1 to 7. If it becomes 10, it would say 1 to 10. If it becomes 15, it would say 1 to 15, and so forth. If the menu item is reduced and we have only 5, it would say from 1 to 5 automatically. So that's how dynamic we want our program to be. That's why we decide not not to hard code 7. Okay, so choose between 1 to 7. All right, and then so we say put a colon here and give a space. All right, for the user to start typing. All right, so that's it there. And then we say if option if option is equal to equality assignment, equality operator, if option is equals to string 1, all right, then we say self dot add book. Of course, we don't have this function now. We're going to create it now. Self dot add book, and then we pass into that function the book list as our program, as the document specification says. So we say we call the function as a line above to the, and then we pass as parameter the 2D list. All right, so we have to pass the 2D list in the function call. Okay, so we say self dot book list. Okay, just like that. So then after we call a function and all the operators are, when the function comes out and the user is performing the operator in there, then after the user is finished, then we need to bring back outside the book list here, we need to recursively call the menu function again, because we want to display the menu again so that the user can then proceed to perform other, choose other options if they need to, or they can choose to exit the program. So we need to call the menu. So we recursively call the menu again, return self.menu, self.menu. Okay. Now we go now to, we have to code now the add function, this self.add function. Let's copy this. So the add function, all right. So we come out here and we declare our function. This way we want to define the add book function. So the name is add book. Okay, and it takes the list of books as argument. So we say books. Okay. So so in this add book function, which is in this case, because it is a class level function, as you can see, it is a class level function. So the appropriate name there is a method. So in this add book method, what I need to do, I'll create a function. It will have its own function, which will take care of validating or harvesting or capturing input from the user for getting the ISBN number. All right. So I'm going to declare a function here inside this method. So I'm going to say dev get ISBN. Okay. I'm going to say get ISBN. I'm gonna describe here what this function does. So I'm gonna say, remember to docstring there, 3 quotation marks there. All right. Three quotation marks there, and I'm gonna describe it here. I'm gonna say, okay, recursive function. So I want to describe a recursive function. This is a recursive function. Requests input from user recursively until valid input is collected and it returns a number, a number. Okay, So it returns a number. So we're going to describe that function here, get ISBN number. So I will start by saying n is equal to input enter ISBN, which is 13 digits, starting with 978 or 979, or 978 or 979. Okay. All right. So that's it there. And whatever the user enters is stored in the variable n. Okay. Then I'm going to say if not self dot validate underscore number, then I pass in the input, what the user has just typed in. So this validate number is a function that we are still to code, to write out. All right, because we are told here that each time a number is input by the user, we should send this user, according to the document specification, the system specification, we should send this number that is entered by the user to a validate function, a validate number function, to verify and ensure that what the user has entered is a valid number. So let's see where it is described somewhere there. So as you can see here, we are told here that in the add book function, it takes the 2D list of books as a parameter, then reads in the following from the user in the function body. Okay, the ISBN from the user, which is what we just coded there, of the book, and this ISBN should be passed to a validated function. That's another function. So remember, we are in the add book method. Remember, method, I explained method and function are the same, just that the scope of one is different. So a function which is at the class level is called a method, because the scope of the function at that time, at the in this case, is the class, the whole of the class, whereas the function has a limited scope, which is just the parent of the function that is calling it, all right, where it is described. All right, so so we're going to create this validated function now, which will take care of validating the input from the user. Okay, so this is what we're just replicating, following this document specification and coding the way the instruction says. All right, so this is the validated function. So we're going to code this validated function later. So the reason why I put self here is because the validated function is going to be a class level function. That's why you have to access it with the instance, with that instance at that time. So that's why we use self, because it is a class level function. So it's going to be a method, so to speak. Okay, so if not self the validate number, if not self dot validate number, then we say print. We're printing. I'm gonna use f string formatting there. Then I'm gonna use my variable in there. So to use a variable in the string, when you're using the string format, you use curly braces. Self dot self dot so I want to print colors there. No, I'm trying to input the colors there to print red color, but I think I'll leave that. I'll do that later. All right, so we shouldn't leave out the colors now. For now, leave out the colors for now. I should just write print invalid entry, invalid. Oh, it's the string here. Sorry. Print invalid entry, or exclamation mark. Okay, invalid entry. Okay, and then I return this function again. So it's as I said, it's a recursive function, so it calls itself, because if the number, when the user inputs a number, the number is sent to a validate function. This validate function is going to return true or false. And if the return from this function is false, which means the user didn't enter a valid number, we should call this function again. So that's what we call, that's what is termed recursive. All right. So we say return self. No, sorry, not self this time. Return get, because it's not a class level function, so we don't use self. We don't use self is an instance, so we don't use self to access the function. All right. We don't need self. We don't need the instance to access this instance of this class to access this function. That's what I mean. All right. So we're getting the ISBN. Okay. We're calling the ISBN again. That's one thing. Now, if that number is a valid number, the number entered by the user is a valid number, we want to make sure that it is unique. We want to make sure that it doesn't exist already in the system. Because if it does, then it's going to cause chaos. We can't have two, because if ISBN in this case is like an identity, all right, of that book. So we don't want two books, two publications to have the same ISBN, or they have the same ISBN. So we want to make sure it is actually, even though what the user has entered, it is unique. It is not, does not exist or already exist in the system. So we'll have to take care of that as well. So we say if not self.validate, and if it is valid, then we can then also make sure it doesn't exist. So if we say if self.exist, we are passing in the if self.exist, we are passing in the list and the number that the valid number that the user just entered. If self.exist self.list book, and then we are passing in the number. In this case, the number is valid now. All right. First of all, it checks if the number is valid. When the number is valid, then it tries to check if the number exists in the list. And which list? We're talking about this list books. And this function exists. We've not coded it yet. We're going to take care of that. All right. So if self.exists, then we still have to recursively call this function again. Print. And we want to say to the user that the ISBN that you just entered already exists. Okay, exists, exclamation mark. Okay, already exists. All right, then we call the function again so that the user can keep on trying other numbers that do not exist. Okay, so we say return get ISBN. All right. But if the number that the user has entered is valid and it doesn't exist in the system, then we have to return the number. Okay. So if not this, it will come here. If not this, then we say return the number. All right. All right, so now let's go down here and code this validate function, and then we'll code this exists if it exists. Okay, so let's code this validate function first. Remember, I said this validate function is a class level function, so we refer to it as a method. So we're gonna say here, let me just put some barrier here, like this, something like this, so that we know where the body of the program is and where we begin the validate methods or the verification methods. Okay, so here I would say def validate number. Okay, and this validate number takes in a number. It takes in a number. Okay, so I'm gonna say if self dot is number. This is another function. It's another method that I will explain later. If self dot is number, pass in this, and if length number length of this number, if it is a number, you have to verify, make sure it is not the user didn't type in a letter. If it is number, all right, and if that number, the length is equals to 13, okay, it's equals to 13. Let's back up a bit. If we come here, so if we come here, you see that the length of the number is 13 digits long. Okay, it's 13 digit long, and including when it is displayed, when we include 1, 2, 3, 4 hyphens, it becomes 17 digits long with the hyphens. All right, so let's see it here. So it is 13 digits long, and then when it is displayed, it is 17 characters, sorry, 13 digits and 17 characters, including the hyphens. All right, so we're trying to code that here now. So I say if it is, that's why we say if the length is 13. All right, first we verify that it is a number. We're going to code this one out. We verify that it is a number. Then if it is a number, then we verify that the length is 13. If you don't do that, then your system will break. So we're trying to take care of edge cases. All right, so, and if it is 13 digits long, and remember, it has to start with 978 or 979. All right, so we have to make sure it is. If it is a number, and let's keep on typing there, and right, and now we need to slice the first 3 digits. Okay, so let's go back there. So this is the number. Let's go to the first document specification there. Okay, this is there. So if the first 3 number is 978 or 979, all right, so we have to slice this string of numbers. That's why I leave the numbers input by the user. I don't cast that into an integer because I want to verify, I want to slice it, and you can only slice a string. You cannot slice actual numbers. To do that, I would need to cast it back to string. So that's why when a user enters a number, I don't cast it into numbers. I leave it as a string so that I can then slice it to make sure the first 3 numbers are 978 or 979. So I'm going to slice this number, the first 3, to make sure it is 978 or 979. So this is how we do the slicing here. I'm going to do the slicing here. So, and let me just take this out, avoid this red squiggling there. And so we say, and the number bracket there, number slice 3. This is how we slice the first 3 from. So this means from 0 to the third position, and 0 to the third position, it won't take care of the actual item on the third position. It would take, if we slice from 0 to 3, it's gonna take just the items at position 0, position 1, position 2. All right, so it doesn't read the item at position 3. If you want just 2 items, you take from position 0 to position 2. So from n into slicing from position 0 to 3, this is how we write it. If this is equals to, if that item is equals to the items from position 0 to position 2, that's 0, 1, 2, 3 items, is equal to equality operator is equal to this 978978. Okay, this curly braces, this bracket here should be here, should be out here. All right, if that is the case, if that is that, or slice, same thing here, that same slice is equal to not 978 this time, but 979. All right, so this is what we're checking for. If that all these conditions are met, it should return true. All right, else, so if this condition is not true, it should return false. And in this other case as well, here it return false if it return true or false. And here, if it is not a number, so if the length is 13 and the first three are 798 or 799, it should return true, else it return false. If it is not, if it is a number, it should return true as well. If it will verify this, if it's a number, if it's not a number, it should return false. Okay, return false. All right. Okay, so let me just doc type, give our doc string here to actually describe what this function is doing. So 3 dots there. Then I say here, receives input. I'm gonna say receives. That's very bad typing there. Receives. That's very bad spelling of receive there. Bad spelling of receive, E-I-V-E-S. Okay, receive input checks if it's a number. Okay, checks, also checks, I'll just put that in same line there, also checks if condition for first three preceding, as what kind of spelling is preceding that now? First 3 preceding are met. Okay, then returns boolean. Returns a boolean means it returns true or false. Okay, it returns a boolean. All right, doesn't return a value, number. The value which is returned here is a boolean value, which is, and boolean is always true or false. So that's what this function is doing. We just describe it here. All right, so what I want to do now is we've taken care of this not this value number. We've taken care of what was a validate number. Okay, we've taken care of this validate number. Now let's take care of this exists. It receives book list and then the number. So we just need to verify that as well. So I'm just gonna come here and declare another function. It's a class level function as well. So it's a method. So I'm going to say def is it exists or number that we're declaring here. We have 2 things to do here. We have here if exists, okay. And then in this function we have is number. Okay, we need to do this and do this. So let's do this if exists first. So def exists okay. It takes a number, it takes a list, and a number, right? So I'm just gonna say here underscore list and number. So the reason I use underscore list here is because I don't want it to conflict with the Python inbuilt list. So if I just say list there, it will be conflicting with, because Python comes with a keyword list. So I don't want Python to confuse and get thinking that I'm talking about a list that comes with Python. So I'm going to put underscore here. That makes it a private list, which is mine. Okay, so it takes a list and a number, and then I'm just going to say items. I'm just going to create an empty, I'm going to instantiate, initialize an empty list of items here is equal to an empty list. Okay, then I'm going to say for book in, okay, I'm going to say for item, yes, for BK in this list. Okay, items dot append book dot ISBN. Okay, remember this list that is coming here will be replaced by what is coming, what was passed. Remember, okay, look at this, is exists. This exists function is called here. Let's go up, where are we? If it exists, okay, this exists function is called here, and when it is called, the arguments are the book list and the number that the user entered. So when it comes here, you see this one is declared with these parameters, okay, with this parameter, which is a list. So this list will have the value of this book list which is coming in, and then the number that was entered by the user. So when we look through the books in this list that came in, we want to populate the items list with the ISBN of each of the book, so that we can then verify that the number is in that list or not. That's the idea here. So items.append book.bk.isbn. So it will loop through the list, and in each list, remember, each list in this list is a 2D list. Each of the lists is the list of books. The books has properties. So a list of book.isbn, author, name, stock, and so on. That's a list itself. So, but it will loop and takes only the ISBN to populate this list. Okay, so it gets the populate this list. All right. Then we say, while it's still looping, okay, so after we've populated all, it has looped through the list itself, and then we verify if n in items, so if number that the user entered that was sent to this exist function, if it is found in this list that we've created now, the list of ISBNs, or here I could just say ISBNs instead of say items, but that's, you get the idea. So if n in items, I want to return the index of that item where the item was found. So I will say index is equal to items dot index of is a function as well, items dot index of n. Okay, now I want to return this index. I want to return index. Okay, else I return none. If it is not found, I return none. what is that? Return none. Okay. So you see, so if the number is in the list, it returns the index of that number, the position where the number was found. If not, it returns nothing. All right. So we're going to capture the return here. I remember the return, what is calling this exists here. We're calling this exists from art book, I think. Oh yeah, exists. So this here, if self.exists, okay. All right. So now we wanted to take care of another function here. If not, this our art book won't actually work well because we still have, okay, so exists, we've taken care of that. We still have this is number. It needs to still verify if the user input is a number. So we need to code this is number function. Okay, so we go down here, then let's declare our is number. Def is number. Make sure the it takes in a number. Okay. Okay, so in our is number description, function description, we're gonna just say put it in a try block. We'll say try, and then we'll say accept value error exception. Okay, so this is our try exception block. In other languages, we call that try catch, but we don't have try catch in Python. We have try exception. So try and exception block. So 2 blocks. We're gonna use just 2 blocks. We're gonna leave alone finally. Okay, so we try to convert this number into an integer. If it does, then it is a number. If it's not, then it's not a number. But of course, because we are putting it in a try, our program is not gonna break. If we don't use try, we don't put it in a try exception block, our program is gonna break. So because we put it in a try exception block, if it doesn't convert, if let's say instead of putting a number, the user inputs a letter like J, it wouldn't be able to convert that into a number. So it wouldn't work here. It would pass that error to the exception block, then it will gracefully handle that exception, that error, instead of breaking the program. So that's why we are using try exception here. So we say try int num. So we try to cast it into a number. If it is a number, it will cast successfully. If it is not, it's not gonna cast. So in that case, sorry. So let's just say it takes a number, num. Okay. So else it will pass it here. So in this case, in num, if it works, then we say return true. True. Else, if it doesn't, we say return false. All right, as simple as that. That is a number. That's how it's being checked. All right. Now, let's see if we can start testing our program now. Let's see what we've done and what we've not done. Okay, so we've coded the functions that the add book function rely on, or the add book method rely on. So this add book method relies on validate number, which we've coded somewhere down there. All right, which is this one. And then it also relies on get number, get ISBN, which is a function within this method, which is this one. Okay. Oh no, we've not even coded the add book. So it is the function which is relying on these things. So we still need to code the add book function, the description of the add book. So this was just a function inside the add book that relies on these things that we've coded. So let's go back to our add book function and complete the description of that function. All right. So our add book is here. So we have to say, where's our add book here? Our add book is here. Let's go down there. We have to say ASBN is equals to, now we call this function now, because this function is responsible for collecting the input from the user. Okay. Then we say title is equals to input. All right, we collect the first name of the no, we collect the title of the book from the user. So we say input, enter the title of, enter the book title of the book, whatever you want to call it. Okay, and then we will store that whatever the user enters into the variable title, and then we say let's get the first name of the author, so that we can calculate to get the full name of the author, like Michael Brown or something like that. Okay, so say first name is equals to input, enter book author first name. Okay, we'll do the same for last name. So we're going to do the same for last name. So we'll see last name here. Last name here. Okay. All right. So, okay. So now we need to collect the, now we have the, what do we have here? We've collected the ISBN, we've collected the book title, first name and last name to get the name of the author. Now we need to collect this, let's go to book. What does the properties of the book? We've done these ones. We need to collect the stock, the cost price, and the selling price of the book. All right. So, but we need to go, what are the specifications that are given to us? We see here that the number of copies. Okay, so stock, that number of copies is the stock. So they say the number of copies in stock, this should be between 1 and 10 inclusively. So it could be 1, not less than 1, and not more than 10. And your code should loop until valid number is entered for the copies in stock. Now the cost price of the book, a valid number between €1 or 1 and 100 inclusively. So it could be 1, not less than 1, and 100, not more than 100. That what is inclusive means. Validate these input by looping until a valid value is entered. Okay. Now the selling price of the book, a value between 2 and 180 inclusively, which means it couldn't be, or it shouldn't be less than 2, and it shouldn't be more than 180. Okay, validate this input by looping until a value is entered. You must also check that the selling price is greater than the cost price entered for the book. All right, okay, because we don't you can't have a book and then the selling price is less. Okay, so when all the data has been entered, save the book list details to a 2D book list. Okay, to the 2D book list. So that's what we want to do now. All right, so we need to check for this. So for these values, so what I want to do is I want to create a function within, not a method, not a class method, a function that will be used to validate these numbers. All right, so what I need to do, where am I here? We're here. Okay, yes, we are here. Okay, let's put it like that. So what I'm going to do, I will come here. This is a function within this method. Okay, this is another function. So I want to declare another function that's going to take care of checking these numbers that they are valid and make sure they are valid before we use or the program moves to the next level. So what I need to do here, I'm going to declare another private function for this method, for the add book method. It already has get ISBN function, and I want to include another function. Okay, and this function is going to be, let's say, def get num in range. It will check the number and then put in the range. We can't use validate number because validate number does precisely a different thing, has different descriptions, and so it validates for first digits and so on. So that's a different number verification. But we want to create another function that verifies that a number is a number and then that number falls within range. Okay, so get num in range is going to take a text. It's going to take display text that's going to be displayed to the user to instruct the user on what to do. Okay, so because it's going to be, this function is going to be called by different functions, by different callers. It's going to be called by stock. It's going to be called by stock to check the stock limits, as we saw there, between 1 and 10 inclusively. And it's going to be called by the cost price, which needs to check that the cost price shouldn't be less than 1 and cannot be greater than 100. And it's going to be called by selling price. When the user is inputting the selling price, when the user inputs the selling price, we need to take that and check to make sure it is not less than 2 and definitely not greater than 3, not greater than 180. Okay, so let's do that. Let's do those. Okay, so this will be the text that will instruct the user on what to input. Okay, display text. Okay, it's going to take display text. It's going to take number, and then it's going to take what else? It's going to take number, num1, and it's going to take num2, like that. Okay. Okay, then I'm gonna say number n is equals to input. Okay, collecting instruction from the user, input from the user. I'm gonna say n is equals to input. Okay, instead of whatever it is, I'm gonna now whatever I'm gonna write here. I could, if it is to collect if it is to collect the stock, I'll say enter stock. If it is to collect selling price, I'll say enter selling price, enter selling price, and so on, or cost price. So that is, instead of writing this and using if statement, making our code so noisy, what I intend to do here, I'm going to use this display text, and whatever is received by this display text will be displayed here. So display text in this case now is a variable. So I'm going to say, so I'll call this function, if it is selling price, I'll call this function with the text to asking for selling price, which will be initialize this variable. All right, if it is the cost price, if it is selling price, and so on. All right, so n is equal to input display text. Okay, input display text, and I'm gonna just say display text there. All right, then I say if not self dot validate number range, validate underscore num underscore range, number range. Remember, we had self.validate number, which is different from what I'm writing now, and we don't have this function yet. or it is a method because I'm using the class instance to access it. So so if instead of validate number range, I'm going to pass in the number that is collected from the user, this number that the user just entered, because it needs to be validated if it's a number, actually, if it's actually a number or a text or a letter. And I'm going to pass also the N1 that came in, and I'm going to pass also, these are the limits, okay? N2. So N1 is the lower limit, N2 is this upper limit, okay? All right, N1, N2. I'm going to code this function in a while. So if that's not the case, if not self.that, then I'm going to say print invalid entry, exclamation mark. Okay. Then I'm going to recursively call this function again. Then I'm going to say return get number num in range. Get num in range. So I'm going to say get num in range, and we are calling remember, we are calling validate number range, get num in range. Okay. So that is basically it. And if it is, we have to return number. Okay. If everything checks out well, we return this number that was input by the user. So when the user enters, it has to verify all these things here. Okay. So one other thing. So what I want us to do now is go to the method area and code this function now. This validate number range. Let's code this. Let's copy this. Validate number range. So we go down here after validate number. Just after that, we can code this one as well. So we can say def validate number range, which takes in numbers. It takes in what we're saying there. It takes in number one, which takes in number is the input number, and then takes in the lower limit and the upper limit. Okay. So then we code it now. So let me just write what docstring document what this method is doing. 3 quotation marks, and then so we say it receives what is receive input, checks if it's a number, calls range function to verify range, calls in range function, calls in range function So I don't need to write function again, because with those brackets open and close, it tells us that it's a function. Calls to verify range. Okay, returns boolean. Okay, so and then it returns boolean. Okay. Returns boolean. That's what it's doing here. So let's proceed with the coding. So I'm going to say if self dot is number, remember we have this function before, so if self dot is number n, that's why we define this is number function as a method or in the class level so that other applications can access it. If self dot is if its number is not at a class level, this function won't be able to access it. All right, so if you want a function that is accessible by other functions, you put it in the class level. If it is a private function that belongs to a function, to a particular method, it doesn't need to be, if it's not needed to be accessed by other part of the program, then it doesn't need to be class level. All right, so self dot is number. If it is a number, then we want to say if again self dot is in range, I think we don't have that one now. In if self dot in range, sorry, if self dot in range, we don't have that in range. We'll code it now. If in range, that in range takes int num, and n1 the limits, pass in the limits so that the range can check. N2, right? If that condition is also satisfied, then we return true. Okay, else we return false. Else we return false. Return false if it's not the if in this case, and we also return false if in this if statement. Okay, return false again. All right, so that's it there. We've coded that there. So that being said, we continue now here. We got our last name, and then we need to get the stock now and the cost price and the selling price. So, and those rely on the check validating these numbers, and these numbers, validate number relies on this function. So we just finished coding this function. Okay, sorry, not this one, this one. So it relies on this function. So the stock will call this function, and this function depends on this function that we just finished coding now. That's what we're saying. So we just continue our coding there. Okay. All right, so we're here. So what we're saying here, well, are we here? Okay, so we want to connect to code here. Okay, so we say stock is equals to get num in range, which is this function. Okay, and then we have to pass in the text that will be displayed here as the instruction for the user. All right, because it is not so we say what is the display text there? The display text will be enter stock. Okay, and then we pass in the stock limits. What do we pass? We pass in the stock should not be less than 1 and should not be greater than 10. Okay, let's check it out and just make sure we are coding it properly. So you can see here the number of copies in stock should be 1 and between 1 and 10 inclusively, which means it should not be less than 1. It could be 1 and should not be greater than 10. It could be 10. Okay, so we take care of that. And when we come to cost price, we're going to do the same. 1 not less than 1 could be 1 and 100, and for selling price is 2 and 100. So let's just make 2 and 180. So let's just make sure we remember these. Okay, all right, so we go back here. That's what we're doing here. We're passing in the limits, and then it will come here and verify these limits here. All right, so let's go to cost price. So I will say cost price C underscore price. is equals to get num in range, and then the display text would be enter the cost price. Okay, I'll just write it like this, big C, and then our big P, enter the cost price. Okay, give a space there, which will be the same. So the cost price will become the display text here in this. So in the first instance, when this stock variable calls this get num in range function, it pass in enter stock. So the display text here would be enter stock. Now when the cost price variable, this cost price variable is calling this get num in range function, passing in the enter cost price as argument, is gonna display here as enter cost price. Same goes to selling price when we define the selling price variable. Okay, so we're gonna and say, I think this is just the same, like this, and then we just change this to S for cost for selling price, S, and here I would say selling price. Okay, enter selling price. So that's that. We got our, let me see, how many do we get there? Stock, cost price, and selling price. Okay, and then we now have to instantiate. So these are checked, and if they're valid, there's also one more thing we need to check. Make sure the selling price is not less than the cost price. Must be greater than the cost price, not even equal to cost price. So let's go to our description here and make sure we understand what was set there. The selling price of the book, a value between 2 and 180, blah, blah, blah. Validate this input by looping until okay. Check that the selling price is greater than the cost price. Okay, it must be greater, so we have to check that. So this is the cost price, selling price. So okay, so that's the selling price. Let's just verify that again. We can also say, so so when calling this, all right, so we forgot one thing here. So we see cost price here, we've forgotten to enter the range, the limit, which is the lower limit, which is 1, and the upper limit, which is 100. Okay, so when we're calling the get number in range, num in range, we have to pass those, because it takes here like this. This is what we're saying. We're calling, it has to take the display text, lower limit and upper limit. And same with the selling price. Now with the selling price, the lower limit would be the cost price plus 1, because the lower limit cannot be, the selling price cannot be same as cost price. The selling price must be greater than the cost price. So we can just say cost price plus 1 as a lower limit, because if we say cost price, that means it's inclusive. Okay, it is inclusive, so we have to make it greater. So we say comma cost price plus 1 comma, and then 180. Those are the limit. It should, the selling price should be valid between these two. So if the cost price is 20, the selling price cannot be 20 or less. The selling price should be greater than 20. So the selling price should be between 21 and 180. If the selling price is 1,000, is 5, the selling price, if the cost price is 5, the selling price should validate between 6 and 180. That's what we mean. All right, so that is correct now. So all right, what else? So now we instantiate the book class to create a new book so that we can add to the list. So we have to instantiate this class now so we can create this book with the properties that we just collected from the user We have two self.book lists here, so we need to take care of one. We don't need these two. No, that's a mistake there. All right. Okay, so that we can add to this book list. Currently, we have hard-coded book list mocking a database. So it's assuming that we have 5 books in the system already. So we are looking for. We want to add another book now. To add another book, we need to instantiate this class and then get that object and add the object in here. So we come here, add book. That's where we are, and then we come here. We say, okay, we say new book, new underscore book is equals to book. Okay, is equals to book, and then we instantiate the variable. So we say new book, we put ISBN. Remember, it takes this, go back to the book class. It takes ISBN, title, first name, last name, stock, cost price, and selling price. All right. So we are passing these ones that have been collected from the user, and we are creating a book object that we then add to the list. So we are adding that. So book. So this one, ISBN, this one. Okay. We pass in this ISBN. Then we pass in this title. Command. Then we pass in this first name. Then we pass in this last name. Then we pass in the cost price, a stock first. Then we pass in the cost price. And then we pass in the selling price. Pass in the selling price. Then we'll get these books. Remember this add book method receives a list. Where we add book method receives a list that we call it books. Well, when the books will be initialized to self.books, will be initialized to the list that was passed in. Remember, it is called here. It is called, where is the menu function there? The option. Okay, if option is equals to 1, self.add book, the passing self.books list. Okay, so this list now will be these books, which is the parameter. This is the argument that is coming into the function call. So where is it? Where are we? All right, we're here. No, we're not here. We are here. Book. We are here. So when it is called here, this is the argument, and then this function definition, which has this parameter, would now these books here will be initialized to this book list. Okay. So we now come here and say new book equals to then we say books. This book here, books. We append that new book now into books. Okay, so we say books dot we call the append function, append new book. Okay, that's it, and that is all about the add function. Now we're going to run it, and then we're gonna print. Let's print the new book. Let's print the list dot. Let's print books. Print books. Let's loop the book. Let's loop the book. Okay, let's loop the book. Let's loop the book. So for book BK in books print bk.isbn comma bk dot first name comma bk dot last name. Let's see. And then okay, let's see if we're gonna see the new one that we just added. Okay, so I'm gonna just have a BSBN there like this that we're gonna modify. We're going to modify to make it a new one because I don't want to be typing. Well, of course, we're going to verify things there. So let's run. Okay, this is our menu now. 1 to 5, really? We have only 1 to 5. Why is it 1 to 5? Choose menu option 1 to 5. Let's see what is happening there. Why is it 1 to 5? Menu. Choose menu options 1 to 5. What is it? Where are we? Okay, choose when the menu is printed with menu items, so we say all right, so there's we right here that we should choose menu options 1 to length of book list. Book list has only 5 items in there. Of course, we're not looking the book, we're not looking for the book length of it, we're looking for length of menu items, not book list. So it should be this one, menu items, length of menu items, not book list. Yeah, this is menu items, okay? Length menu items, okay? So let's run it again. Okay, so so we choose one. Obviously the others will not work. Let's say 2 because we've not done anything to those, so they don't work. So they don't even return the book list anymore, so it just exists because it's not working. So let's choose 1. Say if it is 1, it should call the add book function. All right, so it has called the add book function. It says enter ISBN 13 digits starting with 978 or 979. So I just copied a 13 digit there. That was the first one that exists. So I'm going to modify it a little bit. Let's just say, of course, that is 13 digits. So let's just count and see. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, 13. So we know the length is correct. Let's just say it doesn't have 978 or 979. Let's say 977. Okay, let's see if it's going to accept it. It says invalid entry, of course. Okay, let's just put it back again. So it's a valid number now. Let's check for length. Okay, so because it's not 979 or 978, so now it has 978, but the wrong length is now, instead of 13, is 12. Let's enter. It's an invalid entry. Okay, so let's go for that's a valid number there. So we've checked for 979 or 978, and then we've checked for, let's put 9 here, 9 here, and then reduce the number size. Invalid entry again. So let's go for, we've checked the 979, 978, and we've checked the length. Now let's check let's make sure what else can we check. All right, we've checked those, they are valid, and then let's make sure it's a valid number. Let's change this one to 6, and then 9 instead of 978, we'll say 979. Of course, this is a valid number. Now it should accept this. Okay, it's a enter title. It has accepted it because it's 978 or 979. Enter book title. Say base book 1. That's the book title, and then enter book author's first name. I say Solomon King enter stock. Okay, so with the instruction in stock should be between 1 and 10 inclusive. That is inclusive, it cannot be less than 1. So let me put 0 there. Okay, it fails. All right, boo, failed miserably. Failed miserably. This issue there. Itself the is a move job has no attribute in range. All right. All right. So if we read the instruction of our what is our run there? Okay. So it says bookshop object has no attribute in range. Yeah, this is because we forgotten to code this function here. When we are calling get num in range function there, when we code it on get num in range function here, no, well, get num in range. Yeah. So it's our ad book there. Get num in range. Okay. So get num in range function here. What is it? So you see here when we're calling validate number range, and we're passing in the input from the user, which is this one, and then the num1 and num2, so the lower limit and the upper limit. So we're passing the get number in range, and this is the get num validate number. Is it what are we calling it? How do we call it again? Validate number range, and this is the function description here. Function definition here is coming the input, the lower limit and the upper limit, and then it is verifying if it's a number, and then it is verifying if it is in range. But as you can see, we've forgotten to define this function, this method serve in range method. That's why our input couldn't find this, so it gave us an error. So we need to define this function now. So let's go down here and say what's it called again? In range. Okay, and it takes in number, input number, lower limit and upper limit. Okay, so we say here def in range. What? Let me just say in range. Okay, it takes num, input number and lower limit, and then upper limit, and then so we're just gonna come here and say return num1 is less than or equal to num is less than or equal to num2. Okay, just like that, and then we're done. Okay, let's repeat our thing again, launch again, and we say 1. We verified all those. Now we just put a number. There's a number that exists, so let's just change this to okay, let's just change the number here to make it different. 6, take this one out, 4, 8, then come here and say, yeah, that's just a number, random number that doesn't exist. Oh, let's just put a number that exists actually, because we need to verify. Enter title. Okay, it shouldn't work because that number exists. All right, enter ISBN, get ISBN. It should not work. Okay, let's see what's happening there. Okay, so our program is returning error because I think we have to modify this get ISBN function. We need to, it's not actually working the way we want it to. We have to know that where we're calling the validate num here, yeah, where we're getting this validate num here. If you look at it here, we are also checking. Let me see here. Okay, so we're calling validate num here. It validates the num if it is a number actually, but then we are also calling if it exists. So we are saying here if it doesn't validate, it should return this function again. But then we are saying if self.exists book list, if it exists, it should print this. Then at the end it still returns. There's no condition for it to return n. There's no, we didn't put restrict the return of this n. So let's just rework this function again to make it verify, make sure it doesn't exist. So what we need to do, we have this our input here, and we say let me see, we say if validate if not self.validate. Now let's just say let's say if self.validate num, if self.validate number, and then if self.exists. Remember, the self that exists doesn't return true or false. That's a presumption. We are writing the way we wrote it is on the presumption that it is returning true or false, but we didn't check. It doesn't return true or false. It returns a number or none. You see, the exist function returns a number, which is an index, a position is 0 to whatever, the position of the item found. If it is found, it returns the index of the item. If it is not found, it returns none. So not true or false, it's different. So we were writing it in presumption that it returns true or false. That was the wrong presumption. So it doesn't return true or false. Where we are here. Okay, yeah, we are here. So if self.validate number n, that returns true. Validate number, it returns true or false. Yeah, validate number returns true or false. It returns true or false. Okay, and then if it is true, if validate number simply means if it is true. If self.exists book list is none, is none. If self.validate .exists is none, which means the number, the ISBN doesn't exist. Okay, it doesn't already exist in the system. If it is none, okay, then we have to print. If it is none, we have to return. This is the condition where we return n. So we have to return n. Okay. Else we print invalid entry. No, we don't print invalid. Else we print, yeah, if it already exists. So we print this. Else we print this. It already exists, and then we return this. Then on, if it is not a number, we print invalid number, then we return this. Okay, so that's how it should work. All right, okay. Then let's see again. I also noticed something here where we're adding this here. What is it? Now, if you see where we're adding, we're saying we are defining our declaring our cost price, selling price. We say get num in range, enter the selling price, cost price plus 1. But we have to remember that this cost price is entered as a string. So let's go into the return here into get num in range. Let's say we are returning get num in range. If it is in range, let's return int num because it's a number. So let's cast it from our string to int. If not, we won't be able to add this +1 here. So every time it's returning an int, so that we'll be able to, if not, we don't want to concatenate. All right, we want to add the values. All right. All right, so let's run our program now. Again, let's copy an existing ISBN, and let's run the program again. So we choose one. Okay, let's enter a valid ISBN. Let's take away the last digit to reduce the length from 13 to 12. It should say invalid entry. Let's enter it again. And let's say instead of 7978, let's say it's 97 something else, 976. It should say the length is valid, but the first 3 digits are wrong. It should say invalid entry as well. Okay, now let's input the number, valid number as it is, but we know it's a number that exists in the system, so we should expect to see the system telling us that that number already exists. All right, so we see here the ISBN already exists. Okay, so now let's put it back again and then just modify it to have our own unique ISBN. Now we've taken to, let's say 678, and then let's change another number here to make it unique, 65, and so on. So now it should proceed. Then we say enter book title. We enter ban book 1. Let's enter author's first name, Bobby, Robbie. Let's put it again, Williams, Robbie Williams. Okay, let's say enter stock. Okay, let's test the stock now. Make sure it was working. So enter stock. They told us that it should be between 1 and 10 inclusively. So if we put 0, it should say invalid. And then we get an error. So let's see what the error is. Return get num in range. Get num in range missing 3 positions. So we didn't pass the numbers in our call function get num in range, or return get num in range. Okay, return get num in range. All right, so we are returning this function. It's a recursive function, and we're returning it without the parameters. That's the point. No, we are calling it without the arguments. That what I mean. So let's go where we are calling the function in that recursive function call. We are here, add num. Okay, so this is get num in range. So right, so this is it. So if not valid and that we are calling the function without the parameter, so we should still put these. We're actually repeating this with the display text. Okay, this is what we should be repeating. Exactly. All right, let's run again. Okay, now let's go and get a code, an ISBN. Let's go and get an ISBN. Let's get a random ISBN here. All right, we just change some few digits there. Of course, this one should say it exists already. What's that? No. I should say 1 first. I should choose 1 for first option, menu option 1. Then I put this one. I should say it exists already. All right, and then I put it again and modify a few digits there. So let's take away the last 2 and add 94, and then go in this one. Instead of 798, let's say 799, 99, and then 7 here. Okay, that should do. Now you say enter title ban books 1, and then we say boy Benson. Let's say Ben. Let's say Johnson. Okay, stock. Let's go to 0. Okay, it says invalid entry. Let's go to, stock is between 1 and 10 inclusive. So let's put 11. It should say invalid. Okay, let's put 9. Okay, it takes 9. and the cost price should be 1 to 100. Let's just say we go to 0. It should say invalid there. Okay, it says invalid. Let's go to cost price is 100. Let's say 101. It should say invalid. Then let's just say 100 then. Okay, it's now asking out for the selling price. Selling price should be not less than the cost price, all right, and it should not be less than 2 and not be less than cost price, and shouldn't go be above 180. So let's say 90. It should say invalid entry, or that's 60. Yes, it says it's 60 invalid because the cost price is 100. It shouldn't be less than, it should be greater than cost price. So if we go for 100, it should still say invalid entry. All right, it works. So it's asking us for the selling price, and then we go for 181. It should say invalid. Then we go for 150. Okay, that should validate. All right, now it has taken all that into account, and then we are printing this now. Okay, there was a print test somewhere, so that's why we're having this. When we're testing to print, we have to take that out. Now it has saved this document and now brought back the menu again for us to choose. Now, all right, so okay, I asked to print the menu, the list again, the ISBN and the first name and last name. So this is the this is the new ISBN that we added, and this is the first name of the author and the second name of the author, the last name of the author. So the list now has contains 6 items, obviously in a flash memory, because the other 5 are hard coded. So if we stop this program, this last one is going to go away, because it only exists as long as this current instance is running. Okay, so if we count, we're going to have 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so our add book function is actually working very well. So we've finished that. So in the next video, now we go to the list books function, the second function in the second function, list all books in the menu. All right.